rejectionism, I think, is the nasty polemic term. This talk also presupposes a little bit of background knowledge. If you don't have it, I'll give you a very quick introduction, sharp learning curve. There are readings of the Quran of two types you'll hear both referred to. Shared variance refers to those that are, if you like, irregular, were not accepted by the community later on, and what they call mutawatir, but in fact nobody talks about mutawatir readings really, except specialists. Most people talk about the 7 or the 10 or maybe the 14. And you heard at the lunchtime presentation that the line was drawn at the 10. The 10 readings are considered mutawatir, I suppose, and the rest are considered shared in some sort of way, meaning not normal, not standard. It doesn't mean inaccurate or incorrect necessarily, but it does mean non-standard and rejected for usual purposes of Quran recitation, etc. There's also a verse numbering you have to be aware of as well. There's Basra, Kufa, Damascus, hence Mecca, Medina, and there's early Medina and later Medina. So as well as having readings that are associated, I didn't mention, that are associated with geographical centres, we also have verse numbering systems that are associated with geographical centres. All of this is available in the books, and all in the sense I'm trying to do is just follow a little whim of mine that I've had for many years, which is just to look at these early manuscripts and try and get some idea of what readings are represented, what verse numbering systems are represented. Does that tell us anything about when and where these manuscripts were produced? And what we have today is one very small fragment. You'll see what I mean by that in a minute as well. Which, in the nature of these things, just come one's way. I was sitting in my office in Edinburgh in 2002, somebody knocked at the door, and they had something in their hand, and it was this. Not the only one. Abracadabra. Have I perhaps not pressed the right thing here?
Hot dog, maybe.
No, just shake it a bit first.
Now, here you see what I was presented with. It's about 26 centimeters by 51.5, and put in sort of real terms, it's something like that. Glass, wooden frame, it's in a bit of a mess. Folded down the middle, obviously, at one stage, and then again into quarters. There's a snippet out at the top, which is about the radiocarbon dating, which I hope you've read about in the abstract. There's these paper, I don't know whether they're improvements or whatever they are, they cover a whole load of things. But nevertheless, there is a readable script there. And this was introduced to me as a fragment that had been radiocarbon dated to the Umayyad period. So I was fascinated. In fact, this person, it's from a private owner. He had two manuscripts, one which looked like a letter of the Prophet ﷺ, and this one. And he wanted radiocarbon dating of both of them. The other one, the supposed letter of the Prophet, came out to something like 15th century or something like that, and was obviously not original at all. But this one brought rather surprising result to him, but completely reasonable when you look at the evidence of an Umayyad dating. We'll say further about that later. You can see that it's, well, perhaps you can't actually, but it's actually cut at the top and cut at the bottom on the right-hand side. You can see here it's actually been cut right through the letters there. The sides have also been trimmed. There's this paper repairs on the right-hand side there. And there's not much that you can make out in some sense. I will stick to the other. Am I doing the right thing by this? The flips, as always, there's the hair side and the flesh side. I never remember which one's which, but I think the flesh side is the one where the ink sticks better. So this is the flesh side. It's a little bit easier to follow what's going on. You can see that there are absolutely no vowels, no red dots, blue dots, etc. Red dots and green dots normally. But there are a certain amount of consonantal pointings. For example, right in the middle here, 3 marks for the sheen. So that is shared the image, this actual thing here, messed up by the break in the middle there. Just randomly, the bar is marked with a stroke, meaning a dot there, and but not on this one here. Here you've got Minhum with the noon mark, and just above there, Mustanfara, sorry, the Ter and Noon. I've done a statistical survey of this folio and a couple of others which we will see in a minute, and I don't know yet whether it's of use or not, but for the sake of it, the average percentage overall of all the letters that could be marked is about 20%. Some of them are more frequently marked than others. Sheen is marked out of, I think, about 7 out of 8 times on this folio. Ter and Ther are quite commonly marked, about 50%. Noon, fairly high, the rest low or nothing. So it's a bit random, and overall it's about 20%. Variance on a textual level, 0 in this particular folio. The verse numbering, you'll see some standard features in early manuscripts. For example, this stylized aleph shape here, made up of dots, marks 5 verses. And this little sort of square cartouche thing marks 10 verses. From that, well, there's another 10 verse one there. From that, you can build up an idea of the verse numbering system. Notice as well down the bottom here, when you get to the end, you have the top of a 5 marker aleph. That tells you that this particular surah was numbered up to something 5. I forget actually what it is, whether it's 40, but 55. 55 happens to be the numbering of the Meccans and the second Medinan system. So that gives you a little bit of information. However, as always with these early manuscripts, you get anomalies by the dozen. And the anomaly in this particular one is that now the Qa'idin, which is marked by everybody according to the sources, is not marked here. And, as I said, the 5 aleph there is in the wrong place for the Meccan or late Medinan system. So you have a problem. As I said, it's been radiocarbon dated. There's one more thing that you need to be aware of. The bottom here shows the remnants of some illumination, and I can here, yes. And this is the detail at the top left of the first photo. You'll see the remnant of a band of illumination there. I should have pointed out, incidentally, that this is the beginning of Surah Al-Mudaththir, and the flip side is the end of Surah Al-Mudaththir, and there's a gap in the middle. From that gap you can work out what's missing, and it works out as something like 10 lines. So you have 14 lines on these folios this folio you've just seen. So we can assume that there were at least 24 folios, and that it was much longer, and you'll see reasons for producing a decent figure in a short one. So that is the illumination at the top, and the illumination at the bottom, you can see a little bit better here. There's part of an illuminated band there. Bear those in mind, they become relevant later on. So, when that was shown to me, I was interested. The radiocarbon dating I found, let's just show you first of all, here. Radiocarbon dating. This, on the left, is when they burn the carbon, and it gives an age before the present. So the curve is like this, so the sort of middle, if you like, of this amount of carbon that was burnt is there. And then you go across from this whole range here, you go across to this calibration, as they call it, which is made up through years and years of work with tree rings and this, that, and the other, and dated items that they can use as a sort of standard. And then you get this curve here hits the calibration at these various points. So what you have here is this peak, and this represents this 68.2% probability in this region here. Now, of course, these are AD dates. The literary dates are a little bit flimsy. clearer in terms of understanding what's going on. That the first one here works out as a rather perhaps improbable 26 to 66 AH. But if you take the broader one, 95.4% probability, you're talking about 610 to 770, which is minus 12 AH. Obviously, that's out of the question for this. To about 153. If you take this 90.5% probability here, this 110-year span there, that works out as minus 12 AH to 102 AH. So now this is all probabilities. I know that statisticians say any of these things are equally likely, and it doesn't well be that, it's that. Fair enough. But it gives us an idea. So the idea that I take from that is that there is a reasonable likelihood, and this is what the Oxford people said, that it is most likely that the parchment was made between AD 609 and 694, which relates to the first 75 years of the first century AH. First 75. So it's 1 to 75, or 0 to 75. There are doubts, as I said. Okay. I had one folio. I presented something about this at the Wattmess thing in Mainz in 2002, and a particular specialist there said, no way. Can't be, or may have been, or may have definitely mid-2nd century, maybe late 2nd century. I thought, fair enough. I'll just wait. I waited, and then about a couple of years ago, this was pointed out to me. This was sold by Sotheby's in 2004 and appears in their catalogue. It was bought up by Sam Fogg and now appears in their catalogue, or at least the one that was published a year later in 2005. It was put on exhibition in Berlin, I think a year ago or 2 years ago. And from the script, and in fact, I think even on this one there's the folding, I think maybe it's the, yes, you can see folding marks down the middle here. I should have mentioned there's these different line fillers here. There's various things that you can see. There's this 10-verse rosette here. If you look, I can't for the moment find a 5-verse alec, but you find that they are the same. And to my mind, these are identical. They're from the same manuscript. It's the same script, the same verse numbering style. But, of course, what we have here is a complete page. So from this, and also this is 25 lines. So we can guess that the original of our other folio was probably 25, unless there was some variation between the different parts of the manuscript, which is also possible. And we have here a size of 48 by 54. Worth remembering those dimensions as well for another one that's coming up. But it's in this slightly horizontal format. So it's tall, but it's wider than it is tall. Again, constant method pointing, I've done a survey of all of these, and it comes out to about 20% again. So that's another crossing over. The verse numbering, that reminds me, there is a 5-verse alec. Can't see it very clearly here, but there's the remnants of a 5-verse alec at that point. It's a bit messy, but you can see it much better. I have a high-resolution image that Sotheby's provided me with, and you can see clearly, relatively clearly, you can see the top of the 5-verse alec. Now that is significant because that marks verse 85, and that is specific again to the Mechans or the late Median. So this is the sort of evidence that one has to work with, not much. And on the other side, which is rather bad condition, again, I'm not sure whether I can see it clearly here, but I think it's about there. You get a verse marker. If you had it there, it would be one system. If you had it there, it's another system. And I think it's clearly there as opposed to there. When you look at the high-resolution image. And that again points to this Meccan or possibly late Median verse numbering. But, how do I do that? Yes. There it is. There are one or two interesting things here. If you look at line 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, you won't be able to see it very well, but it's mark is a nun. So naf'alu fi amwalina ma. Now here, again, it's not very clear here. The sheen is marked with 3 dots. You've got 2 strokes over that first letter. So you have tashabu. And naf'alu fi amwalina ma tashabu. The normal reading is ma nashabu. And in this, we have a shared variant which says tashabu. In the sources it's mentioned, in the books on the Shawat Quran, it's mentioned, it's clearly marked in the manuscript, there's no ambiguity about it, there's 2 strokes, which is a tab. It's attributed to, amongst others, Ali ibn Abbas, al-Dhahhak, unspecified who, but the margins of in the Khalaway's book says al-Dhahhak ibn Qais, but not al-Dhahhak ibn Muzam, anyway, I don't know. Abu Abdurrahman al-Sulami, amongst others. Again, much of the geography, Ali ibn Kufa, ibn Abbas, ibn Mecca, hard to say. But Shad, and Shad being marked clearly here, marks relatively early, at least pre-7, pre-10, etc. Then the third folio came to my attention, and this is the one published in the Munajjid's book on Dirasat fi Tarikh